Alright guys, what's going on? I'm going to go through the import statement. A lot of us have been using import on our recent projects, so I want to go through a couple different options here. So I'm going to refer you also to this reference page. So this is actually I uploaded on our Google Classroom. So this is basically straight from the Python documentation online. So when you look at that, this is exactly the first paragraph you see. It's kind of interesting. It says the import statement is most commonly used by invoking the import machinery, which is not the only way, but functions such as import lib.import module parentheses and built-in import can also be used to invoke the import machinery. So an example, what they're trying to say is that basically when you use import, you're going to import the module. So any module that's already out there or any module you've created, and we'll explain that in a second, you can import it. And that doesn't actually it doesn't open the module, it just basically prepares it to be extracted if you want to pull something out. So to do that, like for example, if I wanted to pull out function 1, I could create a variable if I wanted to and set it equal to the module name, whatever I just imported, dot function, whatever function name I'm getting. Okay, so my analogy is like, think of it as a backpack. So if I tell the computer to grab the backpack, it grabs the backpack and brings it along with us. And that way, if I say I need something from that backpack, think of module as the backpack, I can say, hey, go open that backpack and pull out this function, and then we have it. And that's like a pretty easy way to use it. The next thing is, what if I just do from, and I do the module name, import this function? I can do that, and that's just a little bit better because, in my opinion, it's better because I don't have to type the prefix of the module name. So if I just want to do function 2, I say, hey, computer, from that backpack, import this function. If I do that in one line, then every time I want to use that function, I just call it. It's like out. It's like I took that out of the backpack, and now it's available, and it's just sitting there, and I can use it as much as I want. This is essentially the same as if I had defined the function myself. So this function is basically available for use, and I can just call it and use it or set it equal to a variable as much as I want. In the next one, you're going to do the same thing, only with star. So what does star mean? Let me make this a little bigger. I don't know if I can. It's in full screen mode. But the star basically means that you're going to import everything. So star means dump everything out of the backpack. We're going to use all of this stuff. Okay. And then, of course, here's a couple examples. Actually, there's another little tweak you could do. Like if I was importing the turtle function, this is what we would normally have done. I would have to then create a turtle from the turtle module, from the function turtle with a capital T, and then I could move that turtle around, which I named appropriately Alan. If you wanted to, and this is just because you'll see this sometimes, especially with tkinter, people do like import tkinter as tk. That's a really common one I've seen. Things like that which shorten the module prefix that you're going to be using a lot. So if they don't really want to dump everything out, like use the import star, they just want to use the import turtle as f or some shortened name, and that way it basically it imports the module and renames it at the same time. And so what's cool about that is that you still have to type it, but it's very short. So that's it. That's pretty much the only thing about that. So let's go ahead and try some real fast. I wanted to show you guys one of the cool ones is the math module. So there's an actual math module, which is what we're going to do next. So I'm going to go ahead and do that here. So we'll just do import math. Okay, we'll do it the first way. Now from math, there's a whole bunch of functions. So if I go to the math module, if I just basically Google this, and it brings me to this. So here's what I did. I just Googled math module Python. And the documentation page I've gotten used to, so I use this often. But basically, here's all the different functions. So there's ceiling, there's factorial. There's a lot of stuff that you already probably know, and a lot of the things that you think of what they are what like if I think what's cosine, well, it's probably just cos. There it is. You see, so and be careful though, because it's in radians. You see, so if you wanted to use degrees, you'd have to actually be careful. You'd have to actually convert. So assuming that you know what you want to do and know how to do math, you can use this function to do everything you would need to do, pretty much everything. I mean, they've got hyperbolic functions, and later on when we start actually doing some expansions to show you when we start using the loops, you're going to actually compare it to these functions. So instead of just looking them up, I'm going to have you compare the functions and stuff to, like factorials, for example. You can just check it against itself. So let's go ahead and look at some. So let's pick one. Let's do factorial. Why not? It's right here. So it's basically just math.factorial. So for those of you who don't remember, a factorial is the number times itself. So for example, if I did x is equal to 6 factorial, this is what it would look like in a math class. Let me comment this out so the computer doesn't get confused. This would be equal to 6 times 5 times, what happened to my 6? Times 5 times 4, I don't know what's happening, times 2 times 1. So that's how you could compute that. So I could do it the long way, like I could tell the computer to multiply it by itself, but I want to use this function that's already built in. So just out of curiosity, if you were to do this, 1 times 2 is 2, times 3 is 6, times 4 is 24, times 5 is 120, times 6 is 720. So we already know the answer is going to be equal to 720. Okay? So let's go ahead and practice. Let's do let's set x equal to math, the module name, right? Dot factorial. Okay? And this time we're going to run it for 6. Okay? And then we're going to print x just to make sure that we did it right. So let's see what happens when we do this. 720. Okay. I have still stuff from the last one. So there we go. 720. Alright. So there's that. So that's basically the easiest way to explain how to do it that way. Alright, so let me actually do something here. I'm not going to delete this so that you guys can still see it. I'm just going to comment the whole section out. And so now let's do it a different way. So let's say I said from math import factorial. Now the key here is, notice I don't put in the parentheses, okay? So if you remember from the documentation, it has a parentheses of x with one argument. So sometimes they'll have 2 arguments. And it's very important, by the way, if there are 2 arguments, you have to give it 2 arguments. So anytime you look up a function that requires 2 arguments and you try to only put in 1, you can't. It won't work. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back here. So we're not going to include this part, okay? This part does not get written, just the function name. So you basically stop at the parentheses, okay? So let's go ahead and try this way. We're going to let x equal, this time I don't type in the prefix math. I don't need to type this in because this function has already been pulled out. So this function is available. My computer understands what factorial is, and I can just run it. And so I can just run it for 6. And I know this is not going to print anything, but I'm going to show you. If I now print x, it remembers because I told it what x is equal to. It's equal to factorial 6. So that's really cool. Alright, so again, I could do from math import star, and then I could actually do anything. So like for example, I could say x equals factorial 6. Well, let's do a different number so that it's not producing the same results. But I could also do any of the other ones, so let's pick a different one. Floor. So what is floor? Floor basically is the greatest integer function. So like it basically returns whatever's the largest integer that's below it. So for example, x equals floor, we'll do 6.991, doesn't matter what these numbers are. Everything past 6 is going to be, so this will return 6, okay? So this 5 factorial is 120, so this will return 120, okay? And so what we're going to do is we're going to print x and then print y Let's see if this works. I hope it does, because I'm rolling and the video is recording. Okay, ta-da, 120 and 6. And the key here is that we didn't have to type in anything. And you might be wondering, why doesn't everyone just use this? And the answer is lazy people do. They'll use this, but let's look real quick. And this will be the end of the video, but I'm going to look at all of these. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, a whole bunch. I don't know if you caught that. There's a whole bunch. I do not want to have my computer having to unpack all of those functions, okay? And I mean, it doesn't actually slow my computer down for this moment because you can't really tell, because computers are very fast. But this is not instantaneous, okay? Every time you do an import, it takes time. So you telling the computer to import every single function is going to slow your computer down. All right, so bottom line is the reason you don't do it is because it's just, you really don't want to do it unless you're going to use most of these functions, okay? So in my opinion, it's not the best way to do it. It's an easy way to do it, and it's a lazy way to do it, but it's bad practice if you're going to write lots of code, lots of programs that are eventually going to slow down the computer, whoever's using it. And also, you might be using a super fast computer, but the people who are, you know, running your code or you're going to share it with might not have all that processing speed or the RAM available to run it all. So anyways, that's the main reason. Alright guys, hope that makes sense about the different types of importing, and enjoy the next video.